morning. I am back after my 1 week ban. I got banned for some of my comments on various political things relating to the Ukraine war, but the real nitty gritty of it was that I showed one of my videos that's banned on YouTube but uploaded to YouTube through the interior thing, and I didn't check the copyrighted material shown thing at the top of the uplink thingamajiggy fast enough, and then I got squashed. But as kind of sort of, I wouldn't say we were expecting, but certainly not surprised in any measurable way. As soon as my channel was down, the info from the Russians changed to radically include my viewpoint. Just as I was explaining certain things, I noticed that maybe within a day of me getting banned, I saw the Russians talk about the same topics that got me banned. So it's like, if you can't tolerate these conspiracy theorists shouting in the middle of the forest, then we will shout for them. That is the note I'm getting from Russia. But based on my recent interactions, I would say if you are not incredibly core Russian population, and this thing does actually turn into some kind of shooting match, don't expect help from them. Just because you are reasonably friendly with them, if this does turn into Dabaya 3, and we're all literally trying to murder each other, don't think that they'll go light on you because you are a friend, even if you are not fully allied and it comes to a situation where the things have to be done. Don't expect them to be soft. So don't do this support for the outsider point of view on the hopes that you'll get a bonus for it. If you do your work well, you work for the society you live in. So whenever you do need to actually go outside of your society to ask for help from someone, no matter how well thought out you are working less efficiently than those staying in your society. Sometimes you must ask for help, but sometimes it is best to ask for help domestically. And I've been playing with the idea of incarnating, that is, taking the God mode and putting it in a singular physical body. As you know, I don't have a singular physical body. And if we take all the people who associate with or want to be a part of this soul that we are calling this guy, and put all of them, regardless of how they are perceived to be connected to the body, in a same body, we will have a very interesting timeline. It wouldn't be death for anybody whose body is put there unless they are already under extreme stresses. I've been keeping an eye on who's been dying from the public side of my workers, the sci-fi, the fantasies, the novels, what's been going on, what the crime rate has been, and what the troubles have been, and so forth. And despite the fact that we are losing quite a lot of people, I'm noticing an attrition rate that I'd consider to be bad in terms of life expectancy, but we've been over this. Most of the people have been either old or very lucky to live that long in the first place. There have been mostly people in their 90s, 80s, and 100s who've been dying, and people who were born with, for example, one kidney were dying in their 40s. But for the most part, it seems we are indeed managing a relatively low body count. Once it became clear that this adult world requires that you put your full effort into living and not just living, it became clear that we would have to use energies that were meant for beautification purposes, perhaps, to actually subsist upon, which we knew would spike the mortality and cause certain problems, but it has been more contained than I thought. The animal kind has been very much better than I thought. They took a huge amount of focus on me, an absolutely ludicrous amount of focus on me, when I said that we should try to eat all the animals in the least endangered category, meaning the most plentiful, and start to push them towards the second least common category, while not hunting any of the animals in the bottom for most endangered category, because it resulted in a lot of people eating animals that are usually left uneaten, and it caused a spike in certain of their scanners, and they looked at what is going on and they evaluated me. And being evaluated by birds, for example, is a very interesting thing. It's when you notice that there's a group of birds that really actually take an interest in you. It's just not just like their nesting area and you happen to be there, though that is true as well. But when a group of animals of the smaller caliber take an interest in you, it feels like you are being washed in kind of like cold sweat. I call it cold spunk. And it is a very interesting sensation. They are scanning you through breathing through you. And if you just sit there and let the animals come closer to you, you'll notice at some point, for example, that certain kinds of paired animals are flying close to you and doing like spirals near you, and there's no single animals, and stuff like that. They're taking you in. They're seeing how your life energy would be like a bird if your actions, because you are causing them harm, are harms that they want to tolerate or not want to tolerate. Before they know whether it is a type of harm that they need to try to either remove or leave, they need to be friendly towards the thing. It's how organisms breed. When you encounter a hostility that you don't know how to react to, your first instinct isn't to put your spear through it, in average. So while they're scanning you, it's intense because you know that one bird is about the size of your palm. But in terms of their mass in the city that you live in, if you calculate their mass, and I'm not talking anything so mundane as making 1,000 birds fly at you and peck at you, I'm talking about their ability to, for example, make viruses, their ability to do things which change the behavior of the people around you to be hostile towards you, these kinds of things. So you know that if these animals truly consider your actions wrong, you have some minutes, perhaps hours, to change your perspective on them and order a change in attitude, or you're going to be hit by their WMDs. And most of these animal species that I'm talking about here have been around on the planet for on the order of 100 to 10,000 times longer than we have. So if they do actually come for you because you've ordered a species to attack them, not that you're eating one of them, they might be very hostile. But they ended up being actually quite nice. They understood the point. They also pointed out that the ends of cigarette butts, the white thing, doesn't actually decompose. That's something they wanted to say in public. That it is not as bad as throwing matches specifically because they're made of wood. But the bird kind said very forcefully that the cigarette butts, the white end parts, do not decompose. They will remain. They said this by, I was sitting on this ledge on a park, and there was a bird nest. There were like 50 of these little birds in one tree, and they were doing the flight thing where they're trying to like evaluate you, and they fly like 10 centimeters from your head as a pair and then land on like in front of you and then do like some kind of dance together and then fly from the left side, weird things like that. And I was having a long deep discussion with myself on, can I flick matches to the bushes? And after I talked about it like out loud, like I normally do, crazy person, I about 15 minutes in, I saw a fairly weak but still strong version of one of those birds. I can't recall if it was male or female. Fly to the edge of the ledge, fly to the bushes, fly back with one of those decomposing cigarette butts that show that it's been there for like years and it hasn't decomposed, and flew to the sidewalk, dropped it to the sidewalk, looked at me, and flew back into the bush. I was like, okay. Took me about 30 minutes of talking with the birds to establish what they meant. Like, what is the very strict word for word translation of what we can say in public as it being like the thing. And best I could tell, the verdict is that you shouldn't really throw cigarette butts and anything that doesn't decompose quickly into the bushes. That's the sense I got. Like, are you the guy who's polluting? Okay, here's your stuff, take it away. That's basically what I heard from them. I don't think they were like, hey, this is you being nice to us, so we'll bring you this thing that the other human left. That's not the sense I got from them. It was specifically this thing is toxic and it's not working well, and then bringing it there. That's the sense I got. But if I must be thinking of the options, there are some other options of what they were, the birds meaning with that. But the interpretation that I got in the end was that since they don't decompose, they shouldn't be thrown into the bush. That's the sense I got. I got a sense of kind of like curiosity about why the children that are in nests with a lot of these as the cushion instead of say leaves come out different. I believe they were used the word jittery or diseased, and that's the image I got from them. I very, very, very often talk with animals and echoes and knocks and stuff like that. It's, having been a shaman for basically my entire life, it's what I do. It's my job. Which is why talking about this with a psychiatrist has been interesting. They have very strictly said and pointed out that what they mean by schizophrenia isn't any single individual symptom, it's being bothered by those symptoms. That's the point. If those symptoms are so bad that you cannot distinguish reality from fiction and you're not bothered, then it's a medical emergency. But if in their diagnosis process they can see that you can distinguish reality from fiction, and you have a very strong view of something to be real that others do not consider real, but you can accept that you may not be in the majority with your opinion, and that people disagree, then you are fine. That's my final conclusion on why I think I'm talking with birds instead of crazy. It takes a while to learn to communicate with animals. It's not an instant process. But if you have ever had a pet, you are already pretty far along. If you had pets and farm animals and you could tell that those farm animals knew that they were farm animals to some extent, then you are pretty far along. There are some tools that I can show you that will assist in your ability to communicate with those who always communicate using violence. But it is some amount of effort. I also would not have wanted the Axis to win, as a side note, even though they were the shamanistic type who believed in talking with animals. Just as a random side note, because this topic keeps getting brought up recently. I said some time ago that I've spent 20 years trying to find a way that the Axis Germans could win the war and allow for plant and animal life on the planet to continue, so that we can get the final Axis guys who still haven't surrendered after the fall of like Berlin and Japan and so on, and get them like that this is what kind of sort of happened and should happen. So, according to this attitude, your victors, the guys that you were fighting with and for, are these international organizations and groups and people. So you can just, instead of wishing for a victory in the past, which you'll never get, you can just find these groups and start supporting them in the modern age, and you have your solution. I've been trying to do that for 20 years to get the last terrorist Second World War guys out of their foxholes, but it hasn't worked really well. Like I said back then, a few times we've managed to get a sizable portion of the nuclear weapons of the Axis victory timeline to support merging with this timeline, but we still haven't gotten all of them. At one point, there was a like information ascendancy, what you could maybe call the singularity. You might also call it like a self-emergent computer virus or something like that, that would have been able to merge both of the timelines, but it felt, I don't know how to put it in proper words, but it felt wrong. Felt like it's not the right way to go about doing this. But we could have had a computer virus or like a self-ascended god or whatever weird word you want to use for one of those things to manually plot the jump, but it didn't feel appropriate, so still in the back burner, but I have misplaced a cleaning tool. Where is it? It should definitely be in there. to get the remaining hardliners on the side that the Axis should have won, to understand that basically when a war ends, anybody with a population of any size surviving the war wins, basically. So what you have to do post-war is find where did they put all your associates and guys on their side, and where did they say that these guys are, like in terms of station, position, etc., compared to your like previous standing. So you can estimate if it's worth joining them based on knowing who they are in their own timeline and all that jazz. We get a couple of dozen or so a year, and 95% of the searches that succeed go with one of our guys having a flash of basically where the body is, and then we go to one of these former war sites and the guy goes here, and then we dig, and then we go like, so yeah, that was where the place where the guy died. I'm curious. And then they stop doing their shit once they get their little mortal coil shoveled along nicely. That's why we keep finding those guys, even though there isn't, like, all that much searching going on. It's weird that they still keep finding those dead bodies 80 years later.